Welcome to the 2021 New York City Candidates Forum, brought to you as a public service by the Henry George School of Social Science. The shortage of housing and high rental costs are issues that many New Yorkers, especially millennials, are struggling with. How do you plan to address this problem?
I'm probably not the only candidate that's saying this, but we need to build more affordable housing across all AMI bands, because what we're seeing with millennials predominantly is that people cannot live where they work. They can't afford it. People in our district either have had their homes for years and years, otherwise they wouldn't be able to afford their own neighborhood, or they're moving in and can afford the price of new builds. So in a broader sense, we have to rethink how we approve what we build in New York City. The ULURP process is broken, in my opinion, and we have to stop the giant tax breaks and giveaways to big developers. And part of the trouble with this is that New York City's budget is so tied to real estate taxes. And we see now how that creates a vicious cycle of approving ever more outrageous luxury projects, which prices folks out of their neighborhood homes. I'll give you a specific example. In Hell's Kitchen in Chelsea, we have a lot of low rise and pre-war complexes housing long-term residents, right? So those real estate taxes are shooting up. Why? Because the glossy new high rises nearby are altering the financial landscape of the area. This pushes gentrification out further and further. It displaces other people and eventually trickles back down to the city in the form of increased housing insecurity and or homelessness. So it's really a cycle of the city's own creation.
Blighted and vacant parcels dot New York City, especially in the outer boroughs. What strategies do you support to put them back into productive use for both families and commerce?
There was an urban economic study that came out a few years back that developable land in Manhattan, just Manhattan alone, not all of New York City, was worth 1.5 to $2 trillion. Now, this is not including parks or roads. This is actual developable land. So that's more than most countries' total economies. And these are the vacant parcels. And what we do not do in New York City is tax the value of the land. We tax whatever is on top of the land. And I think we have to look at that model and incentivize natural growth on these plots of land. And the land value tax is a proposal I've been taking a look at. It's a model that has worked in other cities around the world. And I think this, combined with a commitment to community-centered projects, which I think is an important nuance there, and not tax breaks for huge developers, would spur responsible and human scale development. But we would have to do it carefully and methodically. So it's not just one big land grab, or it's not just forcing people or companies who have these plots to just build as much and high as they can. So in addition to promoting responsible development, I believe a land value tax would create billions of dollars in revenue for the city.
New York has had recent experiences with upzoning, Flushing and Murray Hill, for example. Evidence indicates upzoning capitalizes onto increased land values. What is your view on upzoning?
I strongly believe that all neighborhoods should share the responsibility of providing affordable housing. Housing in a neighborhood, whatever the designated affordable income bands are, should adapt to the neighborhood, not the other way around. Listen, our district is actually, we will be starting 3 new affordable housing projects and additional builds. That's a lot for one district in the upcoming years, 3. And all 3 of these are same scale builds. So there's always more than one way. Listen, I'm not against all development or all building. That has to be part of the equation to keep a city moving forward, but it has to be on a case-by-case basis. And we do have to modernize outdated zoning to better reflect current conditions. However, the mixed-use aspect and unique neighborhood character must be protected.
With large development and infrastructure projects such as Hudson Yards and the 2nd Avenue subway extension, Would you consider supporting land value capture strategies to return that land value uplift to its creators, the taxpayers?
In general, I want to look at other ways to raise revenue for New York City so we don't continue to place all of our eggs in the real estate taxes basket. While I do recognize that private landowners may reap significant rewards in terms of increased property values when these public projects are built nearby, like Hudson Yards, which is in my district. I am hesitant to advocate uniformly for anything that drastically increases individual property taxes. Um, because of course there are ultra wealthy property owners who can afford these increases, or new builds where this is baked in, which should be the case. But in many instances, there are working class New Yorkers for whom a sudden and drastic increase in property taxes would be really problematic or even ruinous, which I mentioned actually in my other answer, which what we're seeing a lot of, that working class or people who have been here for a while are getting priced out and are forcing to leave the homes that they've been here for a very long time. So I would rather put the onus on any private money that goes into a project, given that many of these massive projects have some type of private investment right now. I strongly advocate for automatic requirements and contract staples that tie real estate development to neighborhood development. For example, what I've kind of been banging the drum about, when the city negotiates with developers, if you're building these new buildings, you are also responsible for building a new public school. I think that that's automatic. That should be in the contract. I would also consider a policy that capped property taxes at a certain level, but added a value capture tax when an individual sells their private property. So I think this would allow homeowners and small businesses to continue operating at roughly the same monthly costs to ensure that no one gets priced out, but would recoup some of the public investment that has elevated that had elevated those property values on the back end when that increased value is actually quote unquote felt by the owner.